6 months pregnant with his pup, and my mate was screaming for the entire marketplace to hear. "Look at yourself! Disgusting!" His claws pricked my skin, not enough to draw blood, just enough to remind me he could. Then the crowd went silent. I smelled him before I saw him. Power, dominance, and alpha so strong every wolf in the market wanted to bare their throats. The Alpha King dismounted from his black destrier and walked toward us like death in armor. "Let her go!" When his eyes met mine, the mate bond snapped into place like a lightning strike. My wolf howled in recognition. But I'd learned that bonds could be chains, and I didn't know if this stranger would be my salvation or just another cage. Chapter 1. The morning started the way most mornings did lately. I woke to find Walrick already awake, staring at me with his wolf eyes, that amber glow that meant he was barely holding his shift. "You were snoring again." I hadn't been. My wolf would have woken me if I'd been making noise. She was always alert, always watching for danger. But I apologized anyway. "I'm sorry. I'll try to sleep more quietly." "How do you sleep quietly?" His voice was sharp, irritated. "You're so goddamned useless." I slipped from the bed, my pregnant belly making every movement awkward. At 6 months, the pup was heavy and active. She kicked constantly, as if trying to escape the tension that filled our small cottage. In the kitchen, I built up the fire and started preparing breakfast. Porridge with honey, the way he liked it. Bread from yesterday, toasted over the flames. Tea with herbs that would help him stay calm. When I set the bowl in front of him, he pushed it away without looking. "It's cold." It wasn't. Steam rose from the surface, but I knew better than to argue. "I'll make more." "Forget it. I'm not hungry anyway." He stood, towering over me. At 6 feet, he was large for a wolf. I was small even for an omega, barely 5'3". The size difference had felt protective once. Now it just felt threatening. "Get dressed. We're going to the market." My wolf stirred uneasily. "The market?" Did I stutter? "No, I don't remember us planning that." His eyes flashed wolf gold. "We talked about it last night. Are you questioning me?" I tried to remember. We'd eaten in silence. He'd gone to the tavern. He'd come home late, smelling of ale and another omega's perfume. We hadn't talked about anything. But lately I forgot things. Everyone said pregnancy did that to omegas. Made them confused, emotional, unstable. Maybe he was right. Maybe we had talked about it and I'd forgotten. "No, I'll get ready." I went to the bedroom and changed into my nicest dress. The blue one I'd sewn myself, with careful stitches and embroidered flowers along the hem. It was the only thing I owned that still made me feel pretty despite my swollen belly and aching back. When I came downstairs, Walrick's lip curled. "You're wearing that?" My stomach dropped. "What's wrong with it?" "You look like you're trying too hard, like a breeding omega desperate for attention." He circled me slowly, and my wolf cowered under his dominance. "Everyone's going to think you're pathetic." "I'll change." "We're already late. Just cover yourself. Try not to embarrass me more than usual." I grabbed my cloak and pulled it tight around my body, hiding the dress I'd been proud of moments ago. The walk to the market took half an hour. In my condition, it felt like hours. My feet ached in the worn boots that no longer fit properly. The pup seemed to be sitting directly on my bladder. My back screamed with every step. Walrick walked, ahead of me, never looking back to see if I was keeping up. Other wolves passed us on the road. Some nodded respectfully to him, barely glanced at me. That was normal. Omegas weren't worth noticing unless they were particularly beautiful or particularly useful. I was neither anymore. "Could we slow down a little?" I called after him, He stopped and turned, his voice carrying to the other wolves on the road. You're always complaining. Pregnancy isn't an excuse for weakness, Kayara. Other Omegas manage just fine. The looks I got from passing wolves, judgment, pity, contempt. Some of the females whispered to each other. I caught phrases. So difficult. Poor male. Breeding makes them crazy. I wanted to disappear. The market was held every 7th day in the town square. Vendors from all over the territory came to sell their wares: food, fabric, tools, herbs. The smell was overwhelming to my wolf-sensitive nose. Spices and sweat, roasting meat and too many bodies pressed together. And then I saw her. My sister Diva at a fabric stall across the square. I hadn't seen her in 2 full moons. Walrick had rules about my family. They were bad influences. They filled my head with dangerous ideas. They didn't understand proper pack hierarchy. But gods, I missed her. I lifted my hand to wave. Walrick's hand clamped around my wrist instantly. Not on the outside where bruises would show, but on the inside, where his claws could dig into the soft flesh and leave marks hidden by sleeves. Don't. She's my sister, who's been trying to turn you against me since we mated. She's poison, Kayara. I just wanted to say hello. No. His claws dug deeper. I felt my skin break. How many times do we have to have this conversation? My wolf whimpered, submitting. I'm sorry. But he'd seen Diva notice us, had seen her start moving through the crowd in our direction, and he made a decision. His voice, when it came, was loud enough to carry across half the Bell marketplace. Loud enough that conversations died and people turned to stare. Look at you! Pregnancy made you disgusting! The world stopped. Every wolf, every human, every vendor and shopper, all of them turned to watch. Walrick grabbed my face with his clawed hand, forcing the crowd to look at me. Really look. Stretch marks everywhere. Fat. Swollen. That face. I can barely stand to look at you anymore. He listed every physical change my body had made to grow our pup. Every pound I'd gained. Every stretch mark on my belly. Every place my body had softened or swelled or changed. His claws pricked my cheeks hard enough to draw tiny drops of blood. The crowd watched in uncomfortable silence. Some looked away. No one intervened. This was pack business, mate business. No one interfered. I stood there 6 months pregnant, being publicly destroyed by my mate. Tears ran down my face. The pup kicked frantically inside me, responding to my distress. My wolf wanted to shift, to run, to do anything except stand here and take this. But she was an Omega, and he was her mate. Submission was instinct. This is my fault, I thought. I shouldn't have tried to wave at Diva. I knew better. He's right. I am disgusting. The marks are ugly. I'm lucky he stays. What other male would want a breeding Omega with another male's pup? Through my tears, I could see Diva pushing through the crowd, fury radiating from her small frame. Her wolf was close to the surface. I could see her eyes flashing amber. I shook my head slightly. Don't. Please don't. It'll only make things worse. She stopped, but her hands were clenched into fists. She was barely controlling her shift. Then the air changed. Every wolf in the marketplace felt it simultaneously. An alpha's presence so powerful that our instincts screamed, submit. The dominance rolled over us like a physical wave. Lesser wolves dropped to their knees involuntarily. Even humans felt something, though they wouldn't understand what. The crowd parted without being told to move, and he rode through. The Alpha King Jabal sat astride a massive black destrier, flanked by 6 warriors in formal armor. He wore black and silver, the royal colors, and even from a distance I could feel the weight of his power pressing down on everyone around him. He dismounted in one fluid motion and walked toward us, toward me. His eyes were locked on Walrick's hand, still gripping my face, claws still pricking my skin. Let her go. Chapter 2. His voice wasn't loud, didn't need to be. It carried the weight of absolute authority, of an alpha who'd never been questioned. Walrick released me instantly, dropping to one knee, head bowed. Your Majesty, forgive me, I didn't realize you were— I am not speaking to you yet. The Alpha King's eyes moved to me. Omega, what is your name? I looked at Walrick automatically, waiting for permission to speak. 4 years of conditioning didn't disappear just because royalty was asking questions. I am asking you. The Alpha King's voice was gentler, but no less commanding. Not him. Kayara, Your Majesty. Kayara. He said my name carefully, like it mattered. How far along are you? 6 months, Your Majesty. And does your mate often handle you so roughly in public? The question was a trap. If I said yes, I was accusing my mate of abuse in front of the Alpha King. If I said no, I was lying, and wolves could smell lies. He was frustrated, Your Majesty. I can be difficult. That is not what I asked. Walrick spoke up quickly, still kneeling. Your Majesty, my mate has been struggling with the pregnancy. Hormones make omegas unstable. I was trying to help her see reason. By drawing blood in the marketplace? The Alpha King's eyes hadn't left mine. I could feel him looking at me, really looking. Not at my belly, not at my Omega designation. At me. Omega, show me your wrist, the one he was holding before. My hands trembled as I pulled back my sleeve. The inside of my wrist was already darkening with bruises, small puncture wounds from his claws. The Alpha King's jaw clenched. When he spoke again, his voice had dropped to something dangerous. Kneel. It wasn't directed at Walrick. He was already kneeling. It was directed at every other wolf in the marketplace. The command crashed over us like a tidal wave. Wolves dropped where they stood. Males, females, children. Even the strongest among them couldn't resist an alpha command that powerful. Only the humans remained standing, confused and uncomfortable. I felt the command trying to force me down, but my pregnant belly made kneeling difficult. I started to lower myself awkwardly. Not you. The Alpha King's voice cut through the command, releasing me from it. I stood there, the only wolf standing beside him, while everyone else knelt in the dirt. You, he said to Walrick, have violated one of our oldest laws. The protection of breeding omegas is sacred. They carry the future of our packs. And you, his voice turned to ice, just publicly humiliated one while she carries your pup. Your Majesty, I meant no disrespect. You drew blood, in public, from a pregnant omega, your mate. Each sentence was a condemnation. That is not being frustrated. That is abuse. The word hung in the air. Sharp. Abuse. I'd never thought of it that way. Mates fought, didn't they? That was normal. Everyone said so. Every couple fights, someone in the crowd murmured. The Alpha King's eyes cut to whoever had spoken. This is not fighting. Fighting requires equal power. What I see here is a male using his dominance and his strength to terrorize a pregnant omega. He turned back to Walrick. You will remove your hand from my presence, and you will answer to the council for this. Then he looked at me again, and something impossible happened. The mate bond snapped into place. Not gentle. Not romantic. Like a rope pulled too tight suddenly snapping back. The force of it made me gasp, made my wolf howl in recognition, made every nerve in my body scream, mate. His eyes widened. He felt it too. For a moment, everything else disappeared. The marketplace, Walrick, the watching crowd, all of it fell away. There was just him, looking at me with something I couldn't name because I'd never seen it directed at me before. Recognition. Not just from the bond, something deeper. Then reality crashed back. I was mated. Pregnant with another male's pup. Standing in a marketplace where I'd just been publicly humiliated. And the most powerful wolf in the kingdom was staring at me like I was the only thing that mattered. This complicates things, the Alpha King said quietly, for my ears only. My wolf was going insane. Mate, she howled. Mate, mate, mate. But I'd learned that mates could be monsters, that bonds could be chains. Your Majesty, I whispered, I don't understand. Neither do I. Not yet. He took a breath, seemed to collect himself. When he spoke again, his voice was formal, controlled. Kayara, I am invoking ancient law. A pregnant Omega in distress may claim sanctuary with her Alpha King. Do you wish to claim sanctuary? I looked at Walrick, still kneeling in the dirt. At Diva, watching with desperate hope. At the crowd of wolves, all witnessing this. I don't know. A simple question. Do you feel safe with your current mate? Safe. What did safe even mean anymore? The truth tried to claw its way out. No, I'm not safe. I haven't been safe in years. But if I said that, if I admitted it publicly, there would be no going back. Walrick would be punished. Our bond might be dissolved. I'd be a pregnant Omega with nowhere to go and no one to provide for me. He's my mate, I said instead. That is not what I asked. Your Majesty, please. Walrick started. Silence! The command rippled with power. Walrick's jaw snapped shut, unable to disobey. Omega, I will ask you one more time. Do you feel safe? My wolf whimpered. My pup kicked. My hands shook. And I realized I had a choice. For the first time in 4 years, someone with power was offering me a choice. No, I whispered, then louder. No, I don't feel safe. The admission felt like jumping off a cliff. Then you are under my protection as of this moment. Royal Guards. He gestured to 2 of his warriors. Escort the Omega to my carriage. Gently. She is heavily pregnant and has been through enough today. The warriors moved forward immediately. One of them, a grizzled male with kind eyes, offered his arm. My lady, may I assist you? I looked at Walrick one last time. His face was transforming from shock to rage, his eyes blazing wolf gold. You can't do this, he snarled at the Alpha King. She's my mate. By pack law, she's mine. By pack law, pregnant Omegas are under my protection, and I am invoking that law. The Alpha King's voice was calm, but absolute. You will remain here. You will present yourself to the council within the week, and you will not... His voice dropped to something deadly. Attempt to contact her. Is that understood? This isn't over. I'll challenge this. She's mine. That pup is mine. Then you will make your case to the council. But for now, she is under royal protection. I took the guard's offered arm. My legs felt like water, but I let him support me as we walked through the crowd. People stared. Wolves whispered. I heard fragments. Abandoning her mate. Alpha King taking her for himself. Shameful. Each word was sharper than a dagger, but I kept moving. Chapter 3. Behind us, Walrick was shouting, making threats, proclaiming his rights. But the Alpha King's warriors surrounded him, preventing him from following. The royal carriage was massive, painted black with silver wolves running along the sides. The interior was lined with soft cushions and furs. The guard helped me inside carefully, mindful of my belly. The Alpha King climbed in after me, and suddenly we were in close quarters. This stranger who was my mate, separated only by expensive cushions and impossible circumstances, The carriage started moving. Through the window, I watched the marketplace disappear. Watched Walrick become smaller and smaller until I couldn't see him at all. I'd done it. I'd actually left. And I had no idea what came next. "Where are we going?" I asked. "My castle, about 3 hours' ride from here." His voice was careful, controlled, like he was working very hard to stay calm. "You'll be safe there." "Why did you help me? You didn't even know about the—" I couldn't say it. Couldn't say mate bond out loud. "I didn't help you because of the bond. I didn't know about the bond until I was already intervening." He looked at me directly. "I helped you because I watched my mother die in a situation not unlike yours. And I swore if I ever saw it happening again, I would do something about it. So I'm—" "What? A stand-in for your mother?" "You're a pregnant Omega being abused by her mate. That's enough reason to help. The bond is—" He paused. "Complicated. I'm already mated. To someone who hurts you. Mates can be dissolved if abuse is proven. Yes, but that's your choice to make, not mine." He leaned back against the cushions. "Kayara, I need you to understand something. The mate bond we feel doesn't obligate you to anything. It doesn't mean you have to choose me. It just means we're cosmically compatible. What we do about that is entirely up to you." I stared at him. "You're really saying that?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because you've spent 4 years having your choices taken from you. I'm not going to be another male who does that." I didn't know what to do with that. Didn't know how to process a powerful alpha saying I had choices. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now you rest. When we get to the castle, my healer will examine you and the pup. Make sure you're both healthy. Then we figure out next steps." "What if I want to go back?" Pain flickered across his face, but he nodded. "Then I'll take you back. But I'll hope you call for help if things get worse." Just like that. "You'd let me go?" "You're not my prisoner. You're under my protection. There's a difference." The carriage hit a bump and I winced, my hand going to my belly. The pup was kicking frantically, responding to my stress. "Are you all right?" The Alpha King leaned forward, concerned. "The pup is just active. She doesn't like when I'm upset." "She." The healer said it's a female pup. Walrick wanted a male. My voice cracked. "When we found out it was female, he wasn't happy." The Alpha King's jaw clenched. "What did he do?" "Punched the wall. Said I couldn't even get that right. That a female pup was useless." "She's not useless. She's a life, a future pack member. That's not how Walrick saw it." We rode in silence for a while. I watched the countryside roll by, forests and fields, small villages scattered across the territory. This far from town, the land was wilder, more peaceful. "Can I ask you something?" I said finally. "Anything." "What's your name? Your actual name, not just your Majesty or Alpha King." "Jabal." "Just Jabal?" "Jabal Nightshade, of the Crescent Moon Pack." He paused. "And I'm terrible at chess." The non sequitur surprised a laugh out of me. "What?" "You asked my name. I'm giving you information. I'm Jabal, I'm Alpha King of the Northern Territory, and I'm absolutely hopeless at chess. My beta beats me every single time, and it drives me insane." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're going to be living at my castle, at least temporarily. You should know something about me beyond titles and power." "I don't know anything about living in a castle. Neither did I, initially. I didn't live as royalty, even though I had royal blood until later. I became Alpha King by challenge when I was 19. You challenged the previous king? I challenged my father, and I killed him." His voice was flat, emotionless. "Because he killed my mother. and I was finally old enough, strong enough to make him pay for it. The words hung heavy between us. I'm sorry, I whispered. Don't be. It was 23 years ago. I've made my peace with it. He looked at me. But I'm telling you this so you understand. I know what it's like to watch someone you love be destroyed by an abusive mate. I know what it's like to feel helpless. And I know what it's like to spend your entire adult life trying to make up for not being able to save the person who mattered most. So I am a stand-in. You're a person who needs help, and I have the resources to provide it. What healing that gives me is secondary to what you need. I wanted to believe him. Wanted desperately to believe that this stranger, this mate I hadn't chosen, was really just trying to help. But I'd spent 4 years learning that everyone wanted something. What do you get out of this? I asked. Really? He was quiet for a long moment. Honestly? A chance to do the right thing. My father was Alpha King. He had absolute power. And he used it to hurt my mother while everyone looked away because it was mate business. I became Alpha King specifically so I could change those laws. Make it so pregnant Omegas had protection. So mates couldn't hide abuse behind pack privacy. And have you? Changed the laws. Some. It's slow work. The council resists change. But I've managed to establish that pregnant Omegas can claim sanctuary with the Alpha King. That abuse during pregnancy is grounds for bond dissolution. That. He stopped. I'm giving you more information than you probably want. No, I want to know. If I'm going to trust you, I need to know who you are. Fair. The carriage rolled on. Eventually, exhaustion caught up with me. I hadn't slept well in months. Walrick's moods made sleep dangerous, and pregnancy made comfort impossible. My eyes drifted closed. Chapter 4. When I woke, we were approaching a massive stone castle, towers reaching toward the sky, walls thick enough to withstand sieges, guards patrolling the battlements. This is where you live? I asked stupidly. Yes. It's enormous. It has to be. It houses the royal pack, the council chambers, the barracks, the servants' quarters. About 300 people live here year-round. 300. I'd lived in a 2-room cottage. The carriage rolled through the gates and into a courtyard. Guards bowed as we passed. Servants hurried forward to help. A woman appeared in the doorway, older, with silver in her dark hair and the confident bearing of someone used to authority. This is Margaret, my head of household, Jabal introduced as he helped me from the carriage. Margaret, this is Kayara. She's a pregnant Omega under my protection. She'll need quarters, medical attention, and whatever else she requires. Margaret's sharp eyes took in my tear-stained face, my pregnant belly, my trembling hands. Her expression softened immediately. Of course, Your Majesty. Come, dear, let's get you settled. She led me inside while Jabal gave orders to his guards. The castle interior was overwhelming. Stone walls covered with tapestries, floors strewn with fresh rushes, torches lighting massive corridors. It's too much, I whispered. It's just a building, Margaret said kindly. Now, when did you last eat? I tried to remember. This morning? I made breakfast, but Walrick said it was cold, so I didn't. Right. First things first, then. Food. Then we'll have the healer look at you and the pup. She led me to a small dining room and had servants bring bread, cheese, cold meat, and watered wine. Simple food, but more than I'd seen in weeks. I ate slowly, my stomach protesting. I'd gotten used to eating very little. Walrick controlled our food stores and rationed everything. Where's the Alpha King? I asked. Tending to matters of state. He'll check on you later, but he thought you might want some time without a dominant male hovering. Margaret studied me carefully. How far along are you? 6 months. And the pup is healthy? I think so. She moves a lot. Good. But we'll have the healer confirm. She paused. You can trust healer Sarah. She's been with this pack for 40 years. She's seen everything and judges nothing. After eating, Margaret led me to a bedroom. It was larger than my entire cottage had been. A massive bed with thick furs, windows overlooking the forest, a fireplace with a fire already burning. This is too much, I said again. It's what we have available. The door locks from the inside. Only you have the key. No one enters without your permission. She pulled a key from her pocket and handed it to me. Not even the Alpha King. A door I controlled. The concept felt foreign. There's a bathing room through there. She indicated a door. With hot water. We have servants who maintain the fires for heating water. There are clothes in the wardrobe, various sizes. When you're ready, I'll bring the healer. She left me alone, closing the door softly. I stood in the middle of this beautiful room, pregnant and exhausted and completely overwhelmed. I should have felt safe. Should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt terrified. Because Walrick's voice was still in my head. You're nothing without me. No one else will want you. And what if he was right? What if this Alpha King, this mate I hadn't chosen, was just a different kind of trap? I sat on the edge of the bed, and my wolf whimpered in confusion. Mate, she insisted. Safe. Mate means safe. But I'd learned mates didn't mean safe. A knock at the door made me jump. Kayara, it's healer Sarah. May I enter? I unlocked the door with trembling hands. The healer was exactly as Margarete had described. Older, silver-haired, with eyes that had seen everything. Let's have a look at you and that pup, she said, setting down her bag of supplies. The examination was thorough but gentle. She checked my pulse, looked at my bruises, palpated my belly, listened to the pup's heartbeat. How often does your mate... She stopped. How often did Walrick grab you like this? She indicated the bruises on my wrist. When he was angry, or frustrated, or disappointed. How often was that? Most days. She made notes. And the pup? Has anyone hurt the pup? He pushed me once, when I was 4 months along, down the cottage steps. I caught myself, but I had bruises for weeks. Sarah's expression darkened. And you didn't see a healer. He said it was just an accident. That I was walking too slowly and he was in a hurry. That's not an accident. That's... She stopped, collected herself. I'm documenting all of this. For when the council meets. The council? The Alpha King will present your case to the council. They'll decide whether your bond to Walrick should be dissolved, and whether he should face punishment for abuse. My stomach dropped. A trial? In front of everyone? Yes. I know that's frightening, but it's necessary if you want to be free of him. What if they don't believe me? Then we present the evidence and let them decide. She finished her examination. The pup is measuring small for gestational age. You're malnourished. Your blood pressure is elevated. All signs of chronic stress. Is the pup going to be all right? With proper care, yes. But you need to eat regularly, rest, and reduce stress. I'm prescribing a tonic to help with anxiety. It's safe for pregnancy. After Sarah left, I tried to rest, but sleep wouldn't come. My mind raced with what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. Finally, I got up and went to the window. The castle overlooked dense forest, the kind where wolves could run for hours without seeing human habitation. My wolf wanted to shift, wanted to run, wanted to escape the confusing mess of emotions and bonds and choices. But I was 6 months pregnant. Shifting would risk the pup. So I just stood there watching the forest, feeling trapped in a different way than before. A knock at my door. Again. Kayara, it's Jabal. May I come in? I should have said no. Should have asked for space, but loneliness was worse than fear. Yes. He entered, and the mate bond flared between us, uncomfortable, overwhelming, undeniable. My wolf pushed forward, wanting to get closer. I pushed her back. How are you feeling? He asked, keeping his distance. Confused, scared, exhausted. Fair. He sat in a chair by the fireplace, deliberately not approaching me. I wanted to explain what happens next. Tomorrow I'll call a council session. They'll hear evidence regarding your bond with Walrick. They'll decide whether to dissolve it, and whether he faces consequences for abuse. What kind of consequences? That depends on what they find. Anywhere from mandatory counseling to exile from the territory. And if they don't believe me, then we present more evidence. But, Kayara, he leaned forward. I need you to understand. The council is made up of older wolves, traditional wolves. They may not see abuse the way you and I see it. They may think mates fight, and that's normal. We need to be prepared for that possibility. So I left him for nothing. No, you left him because you weren't safe. That's not nothing. That's everything. He paused. But the legal system doesn't always reflect reality. Sometimes it fails the people who need it most. That's not reassuring. I'm not trying to reassure you, I'm trying to be honest. The honesty was brutal, but somehow comforting. Can I ask you something? I said. Always. The mate bond, can it be ignored or broken? He was quiet for a moment. It can be suppressed. If both parties work at it, they can minimize the bond's effects, but it doesn't truly disappear. So I'm stuck with this, with you, whether I want it or not. The feeling is mutual. Do you resent it? Being bonded to a pregnant Omega, with another male's pup? I resent the situation that put us here. I don't resent you. Even though I gestured at myself. Like this? You're carrying a pup. That's not a flaw, it's a biological reality, and it's not your pup's fault who her father is. Most males would care. I'm not most males. We sat in silence for a while. The fire crackled. Outside, wolves howled, patrol guards changing shifts. I'm scared, I admitted. Of what? Everything. Of the council. Of Walrick. Of staying here, of leaving here. Of this bond I didn't ask for. Those are all reasonable fears. How do I live with all of them at once? One day at a time. Sometimes 1 hour at a time. It wasn't the answer I wanted, but it might have been the truth. He stood to leave. Get some rest. Tomorrow will be difficult. Jabal? He paused at the door. Thank you for helping me, even though it's complicated. You're welcome. After he left, I locked the door and climbed into the enormous bed. The furs were soft, the mattress comfortable. So different from the straw mattress I'd shared with Walrick. I should have felt safe. But all I felt was untethered. Like I was floating in space with nothing to hold on to. My wolf curled up inside me, confused and tired. Mate, she whispered. Safe. Mate. But I'd learned that mates could be monsters, and I didn't know yet which kind this one would be. Chapter 5. The first week at the castle passed in a strange fog. I slept more than I'd slept in years. Ate regular meals that servants brought to my room. Saw healer Sarah every other day to monitor the pup. But on the 8th day, reality intruded. A messenger arrived at dawn. I heard the commotion from my window, guards shouting, the main gates opening, a rider on a lathered horse. By midday, Margaret came to my room with news. Walrick has filed a formal petition with the council, she said, her expression grave. He's demanding the return of his mate and claiming you were taken against your will. My stomach dropped. But I chose to leave. He's saying you were coerced, that the Alpha King used his dominance to force you into compliance, that you're not mentally sound due to pregnancy hormones and can't make rational decisions. That's not true. I know. But it's his word against yours. The council has called a hearing for 1 week from today. 1 week. 7 days to prepare to face Walrick again. To recount every instance of abuse in front of a room full of powerful wolves who would judge whether I was telling the truth. Jabal came to see me that evening. He looked tired. I'd learned he'd been in council sessions all day, preparing the case. I won't lie to you, he said. This will be difficult. Walrick has hired an advocate, a male named Bruthen who specializes in pack law. He's good at making victims look unstable. So I'm going to be called crazy? He'll try, but we have evidence. Sarah's medical documentation. Your sister as a witness. Deva. How? I sent warriors to bring her here safely. She arrived this afternoon. She's been documenting incidents for the past 2 years. She has. Photos of your bruises, dates and times of incidents, testimony about your isolation. He paused. She's been trying to help you leave for a long time. Guilt washed over me. My sister had been fighting for me while I was just surviving. Can I see her? Of course. She's waiting outside. Diva burst into the room the moment the door opened. She was smaller than me, barely 5 feet tall, but fierce as any warrior. Her wolf was dominant for a female, always had been. Kaya, she breathed, pulling me into a careful hug around my belly. Thank the gods you're safe. We both cried. I'm sorry, I said. I'm so sorry I pushed you away. Don't apologize. I understand why you did. She pulled back, studying my face. Are you really okay? The pup? We're fine. Better than fine. I'm eating, sleeping, not walking on glass shards waiting for Walrick to explode. Good. Her expression hardened. Because I'm going to make sure everyone knows what he did to you. I have 2 years of documentation. Every bruise I saw. Every time you canceled plans last minute. Every time he said something cruel in front of me. The council might not believe you. They might say you have a grudge against him. Let them say it. I have evidence. Over the next week, we prepared. Jabal's advocate, a female named Thessalon with sharp eyes and sharper tactics, drilled me on testimony. Walrick's advocate will try to rattle you, she warned. He'll make you emotional, make you seem unstable. You need to stay calm, state facts, don't get defensive. How do I not get defensive when someone's calling me a liar? By remembering that the evidence speaks for itself. Your injuries are documented. Your sister's testimony corroborates your account. The medical evidence shows chronic stress and malnutrition. Those are facts, not emotions. But emotions were all I felt. Terror. Anger. Shame that I'd stayed so long. Guilt that I'd left. Jabal tried to help, but the mate bond made everything complicated. Every time he was near, my wolf wanted to get closer. Wanted to accept his protection. His care. His presence. But I'd learned not to trust those instincts. One evening, 5 days before the hearing, I found him in the castle's library. It was a massive room filled with scrolls and books, comfortable chairs arranged around a large fireplace. Can't sleep? He asked, looking up from the scroll he was reading. Too much on my mind. Sit, if you want company. I sat in the chair across from him. The fire crackled between us. What are you reading? Historical records of council decisions, looking for precedent. Is there any? For situations like mine? Some. Mostly cases end with the Omega returning to her mate. But there are a few where bonds were dissolved for abuse. He set down the scroll. The problem is proving abuse. If there are no witnesses, it becomes one wolf's word against another's. And traditionally, councils favor the male's testimony. Because omegas are seen as emotional and unreliable. Yes, that's not fair. No, it's not. But it's the system we have. He leaned forward. Kayara, I need you to prepare yourself for the possibility that the council might rule against us. What happens then? We appeal, take it to the High Council. But that could take months. And until then? You stay here under my protection. Walrick can't touch you while you're in Royal Sanctuary. What about after the pup is born? His expression darkened. That's more complicated. As the father, he'll have rights. The council will likely grant him visitation, at minimum. Even if they believe he abused me? Abuse of a mate and abuse of a pup are seen as different things. Unless we can prove he's dangerous to the pup, they'll allow contact. I felt sick. So I left him, but he still gets access to my daughter? Supervised access, with guards present. But yes, that's not protection. That's just a different kind of trap. I know, and I'm going to fight like hell to limit his access. But I need you to understand the reality of what we're facing. We sat in heavy silence. Tell me something, I said finally. Something that has nothing to do with the hearing or Walrick or any of this. He thought for a moment. When I'm stressed, I go flying. Flying? In wolf form. There's a cliff about an hour's run from here. I jump and shift midair. The freefall before the shift completes is... He paused, searching for words. The only time my mind is completely quiet. That sounds terrifying. It is. That's the point. You seek out fear on purpose? Sometimes fear is the only thing that cuts through the noise. He met my eyes. What about you? What did you do before Walrick? To find quiet? I painted. Watercolors mostly, landscapes. Past tense. He said it was a waste of time, that omegas shouldn't have hobbies when there was work to be done. That's not... Do you want to paint again? I don't know. I don't even know if I remember how. There's a solar room on the east side of the castle. Good light. Quiet. I could have supplies brought there if you want to try. Why would you do that? Because you deserve to have something that's yours. Something that brings you joy instead of fear. I wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe this male who looked at me like I mattered. But 4 years of conditioning didn't disappear in a week. I'll think about it, I said. Chapter 6. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. My mind raced with worst-case scenarios. What if they didn't believe me? What if they sent me back? What if Walrick got custody of the pup? Around midnight, I gave up trying to sleep and went to the window. The full moon illuminated the forest beyond the castle walls. I could see wolves running, guards on patrol, their howls echoing through the night. My wolf wanted to join them, wanted to shift and run and escape the anxiety gnawing at my chest. A knock at my door made me jump. Kayara? It's Jabal. I felt your distress through the bond. May I enter? I should have said no. Should have handled this alone. But loneliness was worse than vulnerability. Yes. He came in wearing simple clothes. No royal finery, just linen pants and a loose shirt. More human somehow. Can't sleep either? I asked. No, too much riding on tomorrow. He stayed by the door, giving me space. Do you want to talk about it? What's there to talk? About? Tomorrow I stand in front of a council of males who'll decide if my suffering was real enough to matter. I know it feels that way. It doesn't feel that way. It is that way. I turned from the window. Jabal, be honest. What are our actual chances? He was quiet for a long moment. With the evidence we have? Maybe 60%. The medical documentation is strong. Diva's testimony will help. But Walrick is known in his pack as a respectable male. His friends will testify that he's dedicated, hard-working, devoted to you. So it's his word and his friend's word against mine and my sister's. And the medical evidence, bruises don't lie. But memories can be unreliable, emotions can be hormonal, perceptions can be distorted. I'd heard all the arguments already from Thessalin's practice sessions. They're going to say I'm just a pregnant Omega who can't tell reality from imagination. Then we prove them wrong. How? By telling the truth and letting the evidence speak. What if truth isn't enough? He crossed the room slowly, carefully, giving me time to object. He stopped a few feet away, close enough to offer comfort, far enough to give me space. If the council rules against us, we don't stop fighting. We appeal. We take it higher. We do whatever it takes. Why? Why go through all that for me? Because it's the right thing to do. That's not a good enough reason to risk your political capital and your time and your resources on someone you barely know. Then because I know what it's like to watch abuse happen and be powerless to stop it. And I'm not powerless anymore. So I'm going to use that power. The raw honesty in his voice made my throat tight. What if I'm not worth it? What if I'm just broken? What if Walrick was right and I am the problem? Then Walrick is a liar, and you're a survivor. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. No. But one of them is true and one is manipulation. He paused. Kayara, I've spent the last week reading your sister's documentation. 2 years of incidents, patterns, escalations. That's not a personality conflict. That's systematic abuse. You didn't cause that. He chose it. I wanted to believe him. Wanted desperately to believe that I wasn't fundamentally flawed. I'm scared, I whispered. I know. What if tomorrow changes everything? Tomorrow will change everything regardless of the outcome, but you won't face it alone. The mate bond pulsed between us. Warm, insistent, foreign. My wolf pushed forward, wanting comfort, wanting the safety that mates were supposed to provide. Can I ask you something? I said. Always. The mate bond. Can you feel what I feel through it? Sometimes. Strong emotions come through. Fear, anger, pain. Not thoughts, just sensations. So you felt me panicking tonight? Yes. Does it hurt, feeling someone else's emotions? It's uncomfortable, like a constant background noise. But I've been working with a healer who specializes in bond management. She's teaching me how to create barriers so I'm not overwhelmed by your emotions. Because I'm too much? Because it's not healthy for either of us if I'm constantly drowning in your feelings. You deserve privacy, even in a mate bond you didn't choose. The consideration in that statement surprised me. Thank you, I said, for respecting boundaries even when the bond pushes against them. You've had enough of people ignoring your boundaries. I'm not going to add to that. We stood in silence for a moment. The moon cast silver light through the window. In the forest, wolves howled. Will you stay? I asked suddenly. Just until I fall asleep? I don't want to be alone with my thoughts. Of course. He settled into the chair by the fireplace while I climbed into bed. It should have felt strange, this powerful alpha sitting guard while I tried to sleep. But somehow it felt safe. Jabal? What happened to your mother? You said your father killed her, but what actually happened? He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. She tried to leave him, he said finally. 6 times over 12 years. Each time he convinced her to come back. Promised he'd change. Things would be better for a few months, then the abuse would start again. What stopped her from leaving a 7th time? He did. The last time she threatened to leave, he snapped, shifted partially and used his claws on her. She bled out before the healers could arrive. His voice was flat, emotionless. I was 12, old enough to understand what was happening, too young to stop it. He threw me against the wall when I tried to help her. Broke 3 of my ribs. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was a long time ago. But it still hurts. Yes, it does. Is that why you helped me? Because I reminded you of her? Partly. But also because I have the power to help, and I was choosing not to use it until I saw you in that marketplace, saw Walrick hurting you in public, and everyone just watching. It was my mother all over again, and I couldn't walk away. What happened to your father? I challenged him for the Alpha King position when I turned 19, fought him in formal combat, killed him, and became Alpha King. Yes, the council accepted my challenge victory, though there were some who thought I was too young, too angry, too motivated by vengeance rather than leadership. Were they right? Probably. For the first few years, I ruled with anger, changed laws without consideration for tradition, alienated half the council, made enemies unnecessarily. He paused. I've spent the past 20 years trying to be better, more strategic, more patient, but the anger is still there, just better controlled. The admission was startling. Most alphas never showed that kind of vulnerability. Thank you, I said, for trusting me with that. You showed me your scars. Fair is fair. I settled deeper into the furs, exhaustion finally catching up with me. My eyes drifted closed. Kayara? Whatever happens tomorrow, you did the right thing by leaving. Remember that. Okay. I fell asleep to the sound of him breathing, steady and sure, keeping watch. Chapter 7. The council chambers were intimidating. A massive stone room with a curved table at one end, where 7 council members sat. 5 males, 2 females, all older wolves with silver in their hair and centuries of tradition behind their eyes. The room was packed. Wolves from across the territory had come to witness the hearing. I recognized some of Walrick's friends, some of my family, strangers who'd just come for the spectacle. I sat at a table with Jabal on one side, Thessalon on the other. Across the room, Walrick sat with his advocate, Bruthen. He looked calm, composed, like a concerned male rather than an abuser. When our eyes met, he smiled slightly. It was the smile I knew well, the one that said, "You're mine and you're not getting away." My hands started shaking. Jabal's hand found mine under the table, steady and grounding. The mate bond flared at the contact, soothing my wolf. The head counselor, an ancient male named Aldrich with a scarred face and one milky eye, called the hearing to order. We are gathered to address a formal petition filed by Walrick of the Silver Pine Pack. He claims his mate, Kayara, was taken from him against her will by Alpha King Jabal. He seeks her return and dissolution of any bond claim the Alpha King may have on her. My stomach churned. They were talking about me like I was property to be returned. Additionally, Aldrich continued, Kayara has filed a counter-petition seeking dissolution of her bond with Walrick on grounds of abuse. We will hear both cases together. He looked at Bruthen. Advocate Bruthen, present your case. Bruthen stood. He was a large male with a booming voice and the confidence of someone who'd never lost. Honored counsel, this is a simple case. Walrick is a devoted mate who has provided for his Omega for 4 years. When she became pregnant, the hormones made her unstable, a well-documented phenomenon in breeding Omegas. She became paranoid, emotional, prone to irrational thoughts. He painted a picture of a concerned mate trying desperately to help his unstable Omega. Of a male who'd watched his mate deteriorate mentally and didn't know how to help. Of the Alpha King swooping in and using his dominance to coerce a vulnerable Omega into leaving her mate. The facts are clear, Bruthen concluded. Kayara is not mentally competent to make this decision. She needs to be returned to her mate's care where she can receive proper treatment for her pregnancy-induced instability. He called witnesses. Walrick's friends, who testified about how worried Walrick had been, how devoted he'd been, how suddenly I'd changed during pregnancy. Then he called my parents. I watched my mother walk to the witness chair, watched her avoid my eyes. She'd always been small, but she seemed even smaller now. Her wolf was submissive, always had been. She'd never stood up to anyone in her life. Mistress Chen, Bruthen began. You are Kayara's mother? Yes. How would you describe your daughter? She hesitated. Kayara has always been sensitive, emotional. She feels things deeply. Would you say she tends to overreact to situations? Sometimes. Yes. Each word was a betrayal. Did you notice any concerning changes during her pregnancy? She stopped visiting, stopped responding to messages. We were worried. Did you discuss these concerns with her mate? Yes. Walrick came to us several times. He was very worried about her. Asked if we'd noticed anything unusual. We told him about her history of being dramatic. Dramatic? She's always exaggerated things, made situations seem worse than they were. We thought the pregnancy was making it worse. Bruthen smiled. Thank you, that's all. Thessalin stood for cross-examination. Mistress Chen, when was the last time you saw your daughter before she left? About 2 months ago. And did you notice anything unusual about her appearance? She looked tired, but pregnancy is exhausting. Did you notice any bruises? I don't remember. You don't remember? Or you chose not to see them? Objection, Bruthen called. Argumentative. Sustained, Aldrich said. Thessalin tried a different approach. Mistress Chen, would you describe your own mating as happy? My mother paled. I don't see how that's relevant. Please answer the question. My mate is traditional, but we're happy. Traditional how? He believes in proper hierarchy, order. And when you disagree with him, what happens? We work it out. How? Objection, Bruthen said. This is not about Mistress Chen's mating. It's about establishing a pattern of normalized abuse, Thessalin countered. If Mistress Chen comes from an abusive mating, she may not recognize abuse in her daughter's situation. Aldrich considered. I'll allow it. Mistress Chen, answer the question. My mother's hands trembled. When we disagree, I defer to his judgment. That's how matings work. And if you didn't defer? Silence. Mistress Chen, has your mate ever struck you? This isn't... Has he? Once or twice, when I was being difficult. But that was my fault. Your fault that he struck you? I provoked him. By disagreeing? My mother's eyes filled with tears. This isn't about me. No, it's about your daughter, who learned from watching you that abuse is normal, that mates hurt each other and it's acceptable, that females who speak up are difficult and deserve punishment. Objection. Bruthen was on his feet. Counsel is testifying, not questioning. Withdrawn? Thessalin sat down. No further questions. My mother left the stand looking devastated. She didn't look at me. My father's testimony was similar. Kayara was dramatic, always had been. Walrick was a good male doing his best. The pregnancy had made things worse. By the time he finished, I felt like I'd been carved out from the inside. Then it was our turn. Thessalin called healer Sarah first. She presented the medical evidence with clinical precision. Bruises in various stages of healing, evidence of malnutrition, stress markers that showed chronic trauma. In your professional opinion, healer, what caused these injuries? Physical abuse. The pattern is consistent with someone gripping her forcefully and repeatedly. Could they be accidental? The probability of this many accidental injuries with this specific pattern is essentially 0. Could they be self-inflicted? No, the angles and locations make that impossible. Bruthen stood for cross-examination. Healer Sarah, isn't it true that pregnant omegas bruise more easily? Yes, but... And isn't it true that pregnancy makes omegas clumsy, off balance? To some degree. So these bruises could be from normal pregnancy clumsiness? The pattern suggests otherwise. But it's possible? Theoretically, but... Thank you, that's all. Sarah left the stand looking frustrated. Chapter 8. Next came Diva. She presented 2 years of documentation. Photos of bruises she'd seen, dates and times when I'd canceled plans, testimony about my gradual isolation. I watched my sister disappear, Diva said, her voice strong. She stopped seeing friends, stopped painting, lost weight, became afraid of everything. That's not pregnancy, that's abuse. Bruthen's cross-examination was brutal. You've never liked your brother-in-law, have you? No. You've wanted your sister to leave him since they mated? Because I saw how he treated her. So you had motive to fabricate evidence? I didn't fabricate anything. Those bruises were real. Bruises you claim to have photographed. But how do we know when those images were taken? How do we know they're even your sister? The dates are recorded. Dates that could be changed. Images that could be manipulated. He turned to the counsel. This witness has a clear bias and a motive to lie. Her testimony should be given minimal weight. When Diva left the stand, she looked like she wanted to tear Bruthen apart. Her wolf was close to the surface, eyes flashing. Finally, Thessalon called me. Walking to the witness chair felt like walking to an execution. Every eye in the room was on me, judging, questioning, doubting. I sat, placed my hand on the sacred stone, not a Bible. Wolves swore on sacred packstones, and vowed to tell the truth. Thessalon began gently. Kayara, how long were you mated to Walrick? 4 years. And when did the abuse begin? Gradually. Maybe 6 months after we mated? Small things at first. Criticism. Controlling who I saw. Then it escalated. Can you describe specific incidents? This was the hard part. The part where I had to relive everything in front of strangers. He would grab my arms when he was angry, hard enough to leave bruises in the shape of his fingers. He'd shove me when I didn't move fast enough. Once, when I was 4 months pregnant, he pushed me down the cottage steps. I caught myself but had bruises for weeks. What did he say when you were injured? That it was an accident. That I was clumsy. That I needed to be more careful. Did you believe him? At first, yes. Then, I didn't know what to believe anymore. Why didn't you leave sooner? The question I'd been dreading. Because he'd convinced me I had nowhere else to go. No money. He controlled everything. No skills. I hadn't worked since we mated. No family support. He'd isolated me from them, and I believed him when he said no one else would want a failed Omega. But you eventually left. What changed? I touched my belly. The pup. I realized I was going to raise a daughter who'd think this was normal. Who'd grow up believing that mates hurt you and that's just how it is. I couldn't do that to her. Thessalon returned to her seat. Your witness. Bruthen stood slowly. He smiled like a predator scenting blood. Mistress Kayara, you claim your mate abused you. Yet you stayed for 4 years. Why? Because he'd broken me down to the point where I believed I deserved it. Or because it wasn't actually abuse, just normal mate disagreements? No, it was abuse. But you're the only one who thinks so. Your parents say you're dramatic. Your mate's friends say he's devoted. Even your own healer admits the injuries could be accidental. They weren't accidental. So you say. but we only have your word for that. He pulled out papers. I have testimony from multiple witnesses stating that you've always been emotional, prone to exaggeration, because I grew up watching my father hurt my mother and learning that was normal, or because you have difficulty perceiving reality accurately. He turned to the counsel. This Omega is 6 months pregnant, admittedly suffering from memory problems, on herbal medications for anxiety. She's left her mate for the Alpha King, who conveniently discovered a mate bond with her right when she needed rescuing. The mate bond is real, I said. Is it? Or is it a convenient story? An excuse to trade a working male for an Alpha King? That's not what happened. Then explain this. You claim abuse, but the only evidence is bruises that could have come from anywhere. You claim fear, but you stayed for 4 years. You claim your mate is terrible, but everyone who knows him says otherwise. He leaned forward. Isn't it more likely that you're an unstable Omega who's fabricating abuse to justify leaving your mate for a more powerful male? No. Isn't it true that pregnancy hormones can cause paranoia? I'm not paranoid. Isn't it true you've been forgetting things? That's normal pregnancy? Isn't it true you're currently living in the Alpha King's castle, eating his food, under his protection? How long before you're in his bed? Objection! Jabal was on his feet, his alpha dominance rolling through the room. Several wolves dropped their heads automatically. Counsel is out of line. Sustained, Aldrich said. Bruthen, limit your questions to relevant matters. But the damage was done. I could see it in the council members' faces. Doubt. Let me ask you directly, Mistress Kayara. Have you had any romantic or physical relations with the Alpha King? No. But you're living in his castle. In a separate room, under guard. You're telling this council that a powerful unmated Alpha takes in a pregnant Omega, claims a mate bond with her, and expects us to believe nothing inappropriate has happened? Yes, because that's the truth. Or it's a convenient lie. He turned to the council. We have a pregnant Omega with documented mental instability, making serious accusations without solid evidence, living with the male she claims to be mated to. This isn't a rescue. It's an affair disguised as salvation. I was shaking so badly I could barely sit upright. Tears ran down my face, exactly what Bruthen wanted. Proof that I was emotional and unstable. No further questions, he said, smirking. I left the stand feeling like I'd been flayed alive. She told the truth. Every bruise, every shove, every night. She apologized for snoring too loudly in her sleep. She told all of it. And they still looked at her like she was the problem. The council is deliberating right now. Walrick is sitting across the room, looking calm, and Kayara is trying to remember why she left. Part 2 is coming. Subscribe, comment what you think would happen next, and be sure to drop a like. Because the hardest part of surviving isn't the abuse, it's convincing a room full of people that it happened.